Bennelong, famously the seat held by John Howard until he was knocked off by Maxine McHugh. Do you remember that election? She turned out to be a one-term wonder, though. Beaten then by the former tennis legend, John Alexander. Bennelong really is one of the most storied federal seats that exist in Sydney. The former mayor of Ryde, Jerome Laxale, took the seat and seems to have made it a safe Labor seat. Good morning to you, Jerome. Congratulations on your win.
Thanks, Hamish, but I think we've learnt over the last two elections there's no such thing as a safe seat, so I'll be out there working really hard for the community.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, well, we've seen large swings away from a lot of parties, and we've seen, people change their votes pretty quickly. So, we just need to make sure that we work really hard on the ground and that I do my job as a local MP and retain their trust.
I'm keen to hear from you what you think connected in terms of policies, the substance of policies with voters in your part of Sydney. I think the electoral boundary was redrawn somewhat, but of course you've got a strong migrant population there, so plenty of new voters as well. What is it that you heard or felt you heard from the interactions you had?
Well, I just think we had a plan for progress on a whole heap of issues, Hamish. Like we had plans to grow our economy and transform our energy system. We had plans to reduce emissions and continue on progress there. Housing, we had proper plans to deal with that. My opponent locally and federally didn't have those things, or they didn't stack up compared to ours. And I think people wanted to vote for progress on all these issues, and the results speak for themselves.
We obviously broadcast from Bennelong one morning early on in the whole thing. It seemed then that it was a pretty fierce contest, a lot of animosity. How would you describe it? I guess a lot of Sydney listeners have told us over the last 6 weeks or so that things got pretty messy in their local areas, whether it was fights over corflutes or just sort of interpersonal things occurring. How would you describe what it was like in Bennelong?
It was wild, Hamish. It's like nothing I'd ever experienced in 20 years of either volunteering or being a candidate myself. It's just really hard to put into words what it was like out there on the booths, particularly with the involvement, of as it was being well reported, of the Plymouth Brethren on the booth. It was just something out of this world that made voters feel really uncomfortable, I've got to say. A lot of complaints to the AEC about the way they were treated on the way into booths. And then, of course, that spilled over in other areas too. It was just really odd and bizarre.
What sort of thing happened?
Oh, just chanting, yelling, badgering voters as they walked in. I'm really looking forward to encouraging my community to make submissions to the review of electoral matters, because I don't think anyone wants to experience what we experienced in 2025 ever again.
Just for listeners not familiar with this, who are the Brethren? Where did they come from, your electorate, or they came from outside? This is a religious group that part of their philosophy is to stay outside of formal institutions and politics.
Mm. Well, they went all in, mate, and it was quite extraordinary. Look, it's been reported that some live locally in Bennelong. I'm not sure where they all came from, but yeah, they went all in at this election, and it was something like I've never experienced before.
Could you offer us an observation just on the youth vote? Melanie's texted in saying, I find it interesting that there's been no real talk about this election being the first that boomers have not dominated as a demographic. Is the result for Labor actually a generational change? What's your view?
I think people will make their commentary on that. I just know that the majority in my electorate wanted a government to continue to take action on climate change and environmental protection, and that featured heavily in my local campaign. That's something I'm personally passionate about. But they also wanted fixes on housing, right? And despite our two key policies being held up in the Senate for 2 years by the Greens and the Liberals, we were starting to see some progress in the last sort of 6 to 12 months of our term on more housing supply coming on board, particularly in Bennelong. So these issues, and perhaps many others, were what brought a lot of people across the line in Bennelong, and we now have to deliver on that.
We all saw the pictures of you with the Prime Minister, with Katie Gallagher having a coffee on Sunday morning, Jodie Hayden. Of all the MPs, how did you end up there? What was going on?
Well, I was still in my pajamas making breakfast, and then the Prime Minister called me and said, "I'll be at Bar Italia in 45 minutes. Do you want to come?"
Okay.
And I was like, righto. I dropped everything and had a quick shower and then made my way there. So that was it. You might want to ask him why he called me, but that's what happened.
You didn't say why me of all the 80 plus MPs.
I didn't have time, Hamish. I literally had to drop everything. I was mid-coffee. I was on my second shot of coffee for the morning and I just had to go.
Okay. Now, watching on the television, it looked scarily like the Prime Minister was drinking a cappuccino. Do we have a cappuccino drinking Prime Minister? Can we clarify this, please?
Look, we didn't place the order. 4 coffees arrived. So I don't know how that happened. Maybe that's his order. I don't remember seeing any chocolate on top, but let's review the footage and see what it actually is.
Okay. On a more serious note, it is a significant majority now. And there has been, I think you did this when we spoke to you, when we were in Bennelong. There was a lot of apportioning blame to the Greens, to the coalition for various policies not getting through. You don't really have those excuses anymore. Is there now more pressure on you? Is there now more responsibility on your shoulders to deliver on all of these fixes, whether it's housing, whether it's Medicare? People are going to be turning up to GPs wanting essentially access without paying any money. You're going to have to deliver on this, aren't you?
Well, we don't know the final outcome of the Senate. Obviously, we need both houses to pass legislation, so I wouldn't quite say that we've got a clear run through. But people would expect us to deliver on our promises, yeah? So, I know on the Medicare one, that funding starts from 1 November to flow through to triple the bulk billing incentive to get those bulk billing rates up. I know on housing there'll be a huge delivery over the next 3 years as these contracts are signed and approvals are given and these houses come out of the ground. But sure, yeah, of course we have to deliver. It's no different to any other government. You make a promise, you got to deliver.
Are you expecting an elevation? You can end up in a ministry, Jerome?
Mate, who knows? I don't know the dark arts of all that stuff, mate. I'll just go out there and do my job as I've done for 13 years. If you've asked me when I first got elected to council that I would be mayor for 5 years and then re-elected to Bennelong, I would have laughed at you. We'll just keep on going. I'll work hard for my community and, this place is my home and I'll work as hard as I can while I'm in the job. All
right, Jerome Laxale, good of you to come on this morning. I'm sure we'll talk to you again over the next 3 years.
Hope so. Thanks, Hamish.